Good morning, I'm Frank Powers, and this is Lifestyle Tucson, the program where I speak to our neighbors, the people behind the scenes of our amazing organizations, small businesses, and nonprofits. Our friends are informing you how they serve our community, and they are here to give you updates on future projects. Well, let's make some new friends today. You ever been tricked, deceived, fooled? Everyone loves a joke or a prank, sure, but have you ever been scammed? It's a much bigger issue to be deceived when somebody doesn't just fool you, but takes something from you. It's a horrible feeling to be stolen from. Joyce Petrowski recognized a need in the community based on a personal experience with a loved one that older adults are often targets of criminals because of their philanthropic nature and trusting.
You could say generous.
Thank you. I stole this from your website.
Perfect.
Because of their generous nature and how much they trust others. R.O.S.E, aka Resources Outreach to Safeguard the Elderly, was founded to lead the effort in delivering effective, concise, and face-to-face fraud awareness and prevention programs to the older adults and their families in Arizona so that they will be aware of the types of scams that are prevalent and dangerous to this population and what they can do to prevent becoming a victim. Today, I'm fortunate enough to speak with Brian Watson, Community Outreach Specialist of R.O.S.E. Brian, welcome to Lifestyle Tucson.
Thank you very much, Frank. I'm excited to be here.
Heck yeah. So we've been trying to get together for a while, and I love that we're going to help out some elderly folks because a lot of the stuff on Lifestyle Tucson I talk about, we're always helping kids, we're always helping poor folks, and that could be any age. But really, I do want to talk about helping the elderly. I've done it in the past once or twice, but really, getting scammed is becoming more and more of a problem. And we've all had it happen, but it is definitely happening to our older population a lot more. Why don't you give us a little 101 of what R.O.S.E is all about?
Right. So R.O.S.E was started in 2021 by our founder, Joyce Petrowski. She had a family member defrauded in a romance scam, and she realized there weren't a whole lot of nonprofits completely dedicated to outreach and education. There's some law enforcement agencies and some nonprofits, they do some education, but they're not fully devoted to it. So she had this vision, she started, and it wasn't her first nonprofit. She started one before, so she knows what she's doing. And we're small, but growing. We want to get bigger, and we just want to educate the public at all ages, but our real focus is on seniors to avoid being scammed by a financial scam.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Remember, someone's out there to actually trick you, to really have a divisive way that is a point plan on what it takes to steal from someone. It's not like they have to invent it. There's a template to a degree. There's a lot of different styles of scams. And I was working at a company a little while ago, and the whole company ended up getting scammed. It was an email scam. And then we all had to get the training for what one does with an email scam. And I know that that's huge in the elderly population because of it's hard to suss out the difference between spam and the difference between, a predatory email that's especially guised as someone you might know, or an institution you use like a bank, a credit union, or some other thing where you've given them some information. How much is technology being one of the biggest causes of all these scams?
Well, it's just made it easier. Back in the old days, 20 years ago, the scams were not so prevalent and they were easy to figure out. And now these scammers are professionals. They are reading scripts and they'll change them, they'll improve them. And just the other day, my mom got a phishing email, so a fake email sent to her, but it actually came from her friend's email address. Mm-hmm. And the friend was asking if she had Amazon and if she would do her a favor. And of course, my mom, being generous, being friendly, wanted to help her friend out, agreed initially and said, yes, I do. I have Amazon and I can buy some cards for you.
Yep.
But then we soon figured out, luckily my mom spoke to my brother, figured out it was a scam. But this one was good, technology, because they were able to get a hold of this lady's email, and it came from her email address. Mm-hmm. That's what made it so effective and why my mom initially started to fall for it.
Yep. I just learned a bunch of this stuff. And again, a lot of people can learn just by going on YouTube just to avoid scams, get familiar with some of the basic scams that exist, because you can just remember, it doesn't take much to fall. It takes a wire that you can't see, right? And these things don't have to be so elaborate because they're quick. And that's what they do. And that's just like, oh, can you throw me a gift card? I'm just short. And that's a common scam. Don't buy anyone gift cards that are requesting them. No one in your life is often requesting that you can just loan them some money for gift cards. That is a very, very common scam. What are some other common scams that people can like just know, oh, this one's one to avoid?
Well, the telephone is the one that gets a lot of people. And
Still.
the telephone is not that complicated.
Yeah.
But what makes it successful is these professional scammers are evil, and they just want to take your money, and they know what they're doing. I could play you examples of calls, and people sound professional. They sound like they're from law enforcement. They sound like they're from the utility company. But if anybody calls you out of the blue and is threatening you in any way, and they're asking for money, especially in the form of a payment you're not used to doing, like gift cards or crypto or wire transfers, you need to hang up. I mean, the biggest thing with these scams is you don't want to get in the ring with these people because you're out of your league. The best thing to do is not answer the phone, screen the phone call. And then let's say you do pick up the phone and someone's saying they're from the government and you need to pay some money right away. It could be IRS, it could be Social Security, it could be from the local sheriff's department. You don't have to be nice. Hang up the phone. I'm giving you permission out there
advice.
in Radioland is just hang up the phone. Say, I'm not interested, or you make up a lie. Say, I got someone at the door, or I have food burning in the oven. But the problem is it's a very trusting generation, 50 and older, and they're used to answering the phone. I mean, I'm in my 50s. I grew up answering the phone. And anyone older than me answered the phone because it was the right thing to do. And it could be an emergency or, someone needs a ride. This was before the days of emails and text messages and answering machines and call waiting. So really, you just don't want to engage with these scammers. That's the best way to protect yourself.
Yeah. And remember, this goes for answering the door to strangers. That's why we have peepholes. Some people dress up like delivery folks. And this happened to a friend of mine. They burst right in and tied up his whole family. For real, a few years back. Yep, actually did happen. There are some bad people out there, and you got to protect yourselves from them. And again, knowledge is power. Knowing is half the battle. Yo, Joe.
Yes.
And that's the idea that we're trying to get you involved in knowing some of the things, because I do have some statistics on how bad fraud's gotten. I got it right off your website. That just elder fraud, the reporting for victims over 60 years old has risen from under 60,000 victims in 2015 to over 88,000 victims in 2022. It represents just under $300 million in losses for 2015, but $3.1 billion in 2022. It's such a huge, vast number for just 20,000 people being increased in the scam. To go from that much to 3.1 billion getting scammed. Arizona ranked 5th in victims with 3,000 over 60 years old per state, and then it ranked 7th with over 82 million in victim losses. These totals don't include the victims that don't file a report.
Absolutely.
Right? Think about the scammers that don't get caught. They're never in any of the statistics, and plenty of them get away with stuff for quite a while.
When I love the statistics you shared, and the other thing I've learned, the statistics I share from the Federal Trade Commission, is the older you get, you lose more money per median loss, but also the people that report, the number goes down as the years go up, because as you get older, you don't want people to find out that you fell for a scam. You're embarrassed.
Yep.
You don't know who to report it to. You figure, what's the point? And then think about this. Say you're 70 years old and you live on your own and you just lost $10,000 or $20,000 in some sort of scam. Are you going to tell your kids? No, because if they find out, they're going to say, Mom, Dad, it's time to take that checkbook away.
Wow.
Or maybe even take away your ability to handle your own finances, drive a car, live on your own, things like that. But no, it's an 84% increase between 2021 and 2022. And the losses just keep going up because it's profitable. These scammers, I've learned from my years in federal law enforcement, a lot of them have migrated from violent or street-level crimes into this, what you want to call white-collar crime or just, nonviolent crime, because it's a lot safer. They can make phone calls and send emails from anywhere in the world just using a laptop or having a smartphone.
Yeah, all day long. And keep in mind that some people are smart, but some people are also really stupid, and they're willing to just sit there all day and do it because they know that they can't get any other way to get by. So they know stealing from others is worth the grind. That's the grind that they're doing, is just sitting there, and they know that's to them easier than a day's work, because they're just calling people nonstop. How many phone calls can they make in an hour? I'm willing to bet, I have no friends that work at call centers, it's probably near 500, because that many people hang up. You only need one. That's why it's called phishing. That's exactly why. Then there's even spear phishing as a term, and that's what actually happened, where it was directed from a friend's email.
Right.
How many times are you on Facebook and someone's Facebook Messenger gets hacked? It's ridiculous. Oh, did you know this person that died? Don't ever click that message. No one's calling you or sending you a message through Facebook Messenger like that. I mean, it's something to obviously be aware of, but it shows you they're preying on your weaknesses of caring and being a good person. So let me tell you, let me ask you this. You ever been scammed? You personally, do you have a scam story?
I personally have not, thank goodness, but I and especially now working for a nonprofit that educates on scams, I really don't want to fall because it would make me look really bad. But I've talked to someone who educates people on cybersecurity, and they fell for a phishing email.
Yep.
So it just shows it can happen to all of us. And sometimes we pick on seniors as falling for these scams, but there's teenagers who fall for scams all the time.
A lot.
There are people who are in their 30s and 40s that fall for scams. But here's the difference. Teenagers don't have any money.
True.
Teenagers usually have a few $100s in their bank account and just waiting for the next paycheck. If you've played your cards right and you're 60, 70, 80 years old, you've accumulated wealth over your lifetime, hopefully. Not everybody. Some people are on a fixed income just getting by. But I've met a lot of seniors who are extremely wealthy just because they delayed gratification, they saved, they wanted to have money for retirement, they wanted to have money to provide for their grandchild's education, their kids' weddings, things like that. And that's what's so sad about these scams. It can be wiped out in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
I met a lady who lost $700,000 in a scam, lost her house.
Oh my God.
And she said my husband, her deceased husband, he would be rolling over in his grave if he found out I did this.
Right.
And she's embarrassed, and there's some shame that goes with it. And so when I talk to her, the biggest thing is I'm sorry this happened to you. Try to get her connected with the appropriate law enforcement agency. But the one thing I never did was, say, why did you do that? Are you stupid?
Right.
No. The people that I've met that have fallen for these scams, highly intelligent, highly educated, they just made the mistake of engaging with a criminal and in over their heads. And, a lot of times right after it happened, they realized they'd made a mistake.
Yep.
It's very sad.
Yeah. I got scammed. I'll tell you a quick story. It's not for much, but it shows the way it works. It's an elaborate plan that I fall for, but because of my good nature, I even over scammed myself. So I used to own an art gallery downtown. A guy comes up to me, and there's across from the bus station. So not the best people hanging around there all the time. A guy comes up to me. He's just like, hey, man, I work for the store owner right down the way. I just need to go run and get this thing, whatever it was. I just need $13 just to get on the bus to go run this errand for him. And he waves at the store owner down the way who's hanging out at the store. He waves back at both of us. All right. And I'm like, all right, that's normal. All right. And I'm kind of a new business, meeting the neighbors. Right. I'll be back in just a little bit this time. Just take $20 because here's a $20 bill. That's easier. Right.
Yes.
And the guy's like, okay. Goes and does that. Disappears. A couple hours go by. I go down there to that store and I'm like, hey, where's your guy? He said he'd be back maybe in an hour. And he's like, what are you talking about? And he goes, that guy asked to borrow my phone. That guy, that's all he did. He said, hey, can I borrow your cell phone for a second? And then walks down the street and pulls that whole thing. And that guy waves because he lent him his cell phone.
Wow.
Isn't that something? And then it was just $20, but I'm like, lesson learned on how much I wanted to help. I wanted to be nice. And you feel like you're helping out a neighbor. Nope.
And that's what's sad is it violates our trust between fellow human beings because, I warn people about scams and always to be paranoid and making sure an email is legit. And it's a hard way to live. I wish we didn't have to live that way. Mm-hmm. But it's the reality of the society we're in. There is a small amount of people who will take advantage of people's generosity. Yeah.
Unfortunately, those people are often desperate too. Whether they're desperate because of just being criminals, if they have a drug addiction, or who knows, whatever it is. These are the types of people that prey on good folks, and that's what happens. I just got porch pirated 2 weeks ago, and I know that I could have stopped that by putting up a sign. Now there is a sign, and every delivery comes where I need it to be. I knew it and was worried about being porch pirated for days and days, tracking the package, and I never printed out that sign, and then there it is. All I needed to do was do that.
What was that? What would the sign say?
Just no deliveries to this door, delivered to the back through the gate.
Oh,
that's
right,
where all my
right.
deliveries go. And that isn't my delivery instructions on the thing, but every once in a while a package doesn't get delivered that way because they don't see those instructions. So what do? One piece of paper solves this, and I didn't do it. I hesitated. Why? Laziness? I don't know. But there are a lot of things that people can do to protect themselves. Even things as simple as that, right? Things like looking out your peephole, asking, hanging up the phone. All these simple, very quick decisions. What's some advice you can give to people as far as like really the quickest and easiest way to avoid some scams?
So just on emails, don't click on links.
Right.
Phishing emails we mentioned earlier, and they're basically phony emails trying to get you to react. And one of the most common phishing emails purportedly comes from your bank. So it might say Chase or B of A or Wells Fargo, and they'll say your account has been suspended because of suspicious activity. We're worried about the safety of your account and your security. And they say, click on this and we'll reinstate your account. So you sit there and it gets your emotions, it gets your fear of not having money, and they provide a box for you to click. Well, don't click on that box. If you're at home, you have a big computer, you can hover your mouse over it. Don't click. In the lower left corner of your screen, the actual website they're trying to take you to will show up. That's the most prevalent scams are phishing emails just because of sheer volume.
Yep.
Because phone scams are very labor intensive because you can only be on the phone one call at a time. But you could send out thousands of phishing emails claiming to be from someone's bank. They might say, Amazon, your account's on hold. I'm getting a text message basically every day from the U.S. Postal Service, but it's not the U.S. Postal Service.
Right.
They're saying my package that was supposed to be delivered has been held up because of something missing on the address. And then you think about how effective it would be, especially during the holidays, or if you're just waiting for an important package and you have a home business. But that's an example of smishing. So short message service, that's the correct name for a text message. Those just go out in the thousands and millions every day, and they just want you to click. So the best advice I have for phishing and smishing is don't click on links.
Okay, good advice there. I recently did click on a link, and then I realized what I had done. And what that link did was it downloads a little thing onto your computer that's actually sending screen recordings back to somewhere, little 14-second screen recordings, and then they'll just watch all those recordings till finally you enter a password somewhere. This is why your password is even starred and you don't see it when you're typing it in, so that no prying eyes can see it, even eyes that are behind a monitor that might be watching a screen recording. I think some of the best advice that some people you might need to make sure you do get antivirus stuff on your computer, even cell phones have that stuff, because you can get hacked so easily now. The technology that happened to even celebrities where they can just steal their phone, their photos, things like that, just by walking past people. We are so open, unfortunately, right now. There's a lot of openings to our information, and trying to seal up as many of those openings is probably the way to do it, or avenues, whatever, is the way to do it. Again, what other advice could you give anyone? I always say you got to look at those emails, look for a dot, look for a hyphen. Your bank does not have a hyphen in its .com, and the fake website will. They'll throw a hyphen in there. There's an extra dot in there. Look for those from some of your senders and where your emails are coming from.
Yeah, so the scammers just copy the fonts and the screenshots from a bank or Amazon or any other company. You have to assume if you got an email from a company that they're trying to impersonate the company. Just delete the email. Go directly to the company by logging in, start a whole new search, or pull it up as a saved link, to a website, and then log in and see if there's an issue. It's just time is your friend. A lot of times, because they heighten your emotions, these scammers, they want you to panic. It's either fear or greed or you've won something. They get you excited. So when you get excited, you don't make good decisions. So your best thing to do is slow down. Time is your friend. Hang up, delete the email, And then, I talk about that show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, with Regis Philbin. You remember that show?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and then remember what happened if you didn't know the answer? You had a couple of different options.
You have a lifeline.
The lifeline. And one of them is you had a friend on standby.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked people this question: who is your most trusted friend when it comes to sniffing out a scam email or phone call? It might be a family member. It might be a friend. It might be a neighbor. I had someone email me today at my work email. I gave a presentation a while back, and she had a client who wasn't sure if an email was a phishing email. So she checked with me, and I loved it. I would do that all day, helping people if I had enough time. And because basically she wasn't sure, but she stopped. She waited. She phoned a friend, happened to be her financial advisor, and then that person contacted me. I looked at it. I said, no, it's not phishing. It's aggressive email marketing, and they're trying to make a buck, but it's legitimate. But time is your friend. Don't rush. Verify, and then talk to someone who you trust.
Heck yeah. Now, also, if you're a person that notices a fraud, one of these things that I liked was I went right to your website, and I'll give people all that information, but it's roseadvocacy.org, and I'll tell them other places they could find you and all that stuff. And you can report a fraud right there. It's the very first thing you can do on your website, and I think that's great.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if you've been victimized, you need to report it. A lot of people don't do that because, it'll complete the case sometimes. And also, I mentioned earlier a lady who lost $700,000. It was a romance scam. I made sure she reported it, really encouraged her, because it would also increase the losses if the government did catch the bad person, because you want to get the complete picture. The more losses that the government can show, it increases the sentence. But also one person's testimony could solve the case. It could connect all the dots.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Well, people that do this stuff are desperate, which is why they can be dangerous. So never take justice into your own hands, and don't put yourself in any danger if you are in the midst of a fraud. Reach out and get some help, and reaching out to R.O.S.E is probably a good way to do it. So what type of programs are you offering so that you can help educate these people and anyone that needs help with this education?
Right. Our main focus is in-person presentations to seniors where they live for free. So we especially are started in the Phoenix area, so Maricopa County. We have a whole bunch of communities where we've sent one of our either employees or volunteers out to tell them about the latest scams and to educate them. And then we have them return 6 months later to update and share information. I've done a couple presentations recently here in Tucson, and they were very well received. And then I also, for me, my main focus is doing media and working with law enforcement agencies and doing public presentations, just thinking more outside the box. Because in my mind, it's very important to talk to seniors where they live and educate them. I feel my job, my more calling, is to talk to the children of seniors. So someone in my age group. So I'm in my early 50s. I have parents who are in the 80s. What I do is really try to educate them so they can educate their parents. So that's why we have a monthly newsletter that people can sign up for at roseadvocacy.org. It's free, comes out once a month. I call it a conversation starter. Both my parents received that email, and then my dad got it and said, "Hey, can I share it?" I said, "Absolutely, send it to all your friends." But I can read the email, so can my mom, my dad, and I'll say, "Hey, were you aware of that scam?" "Oh yeah, I heard about that." So it's prevention, because we're in the prevention business. It's so much easier to stop the money on the front end than trying to chase it down on the back end.
Yep, absolutely it is. So you do a lot of fun stuff too as well. Tell us about this fun golf tournament, as we got a few more minutes here. It's coming up on April 19th. What are we doing there?
So playing golf up in the
Yay!
Phoenix area, up in Mesa at a place called Dobson Ranch. I haven't golfed there, but I'll be there April 19th. You can sign up on our website, which I've already mentioned, roseadvocacy.org. It's right on the front page. It's a fundraiser. So people can pay to just golf, but we also want sponsors, and you can sponsor holes, and you can, we're looking, it's an opportunity for people to invest in preventing what might be their family member or friend from being defrauded. We're a very lean organization. I mean, we only have 1.5 employees. I happen to be the half employee because I work 20 hours a week. but the vast majority of the people that do work for us are actually volunteers.
Heck yeah, that was my next question. How can people volunteer?
We're always looking for help. I mean, there's just go to info@roseadvocacy.org and say, I'd like to get in on this fight. And trust me, Joyce, who's our founder and CEO, she is great at finding talent, and people gravitate to her because she's a hard worker. She's got a great vision. And we're always looking for ideas, suggestions, people to volunteer, people to do speaking events. I mean, like I said, we're small and lean, but we're only in Arizona right now. But we'd like to move to other states nearby. We've been networking with other fraud fighters in other parts of the country. We've been working with a guy in Virginia, collaborating, sharing great ideas, seeing if we could do a grant together. I've learned in my short time in the nonprofit world is collaboration is the key. Even if you're maybe in the same business or the same charity doing the same thing, you can still help each other out because the more people in this fight against fraud, the better.
Yeah. Hey, that's that rising tide. And again, it's about making the dominoes fall in the right direction. When you connect those dots, you never know if you are the dot that solves the case, like you were saying earlier. But it really is all about that. And I produce a lot of shows for other groups, and I do this show. And it's fun to find out how many it's like, oh, we looked at a traffic study in Texas, or we looked at a community organization in Ohio, and they reached out. Like, there are answers to some of these questions out there. You just got to look, and you got to partner up, and you just got to make some friends in the community that are doing this and fighting a good fight. And it's a good fight that you are fighting indeed. If you had one wish for your organization, what would it be?
So we've been around for 2 years, and sustaining is the hardest part of any charity. There's a lot of people who go into nonprofits with great intentions, but they just can't sustain it. And it's always a battle to have money to fund our underlying expenses. Even though we are lean, we still have expenses. There's a wide variety of legal and websites and different things like that. So we would love people just to give us $10 a month. If we could get a bunch of people just to go on our website on the donate page and say, you know what, I'm willing to give up $10 a month to help protect my family, friends, neighbors, and my community against these frauds. It would allow us to do more outreach and to know that we're going to be in a good financial standing for the next 2, 5, or 10 years.
Well, you're a great group doing a lot of great work. I love it. And again, I talked to a lot of individuals here on Lifestyle Tucson. I was excited to talk to you today about all this because I think it is very important. It's a very modern problem that, just like you said, it rose 86%. Like, that's insane. The numbers I read earlier, astronomical, to go from, 80,000 to 3.2 billion. That's an insane amount of theft, and we got to stop because they're stealing from grandma, grandpa, mom, and dad. Can't have that, all right? Because it's heartbreaking, and no one deserves to feel that either. It's a terrible feeling to get stolen from.
Right. There's a lot of shame, and then there's a self-doubt, and I'm going to be interviewing a psychologist this afternoon, basically to talk about what happens to people who are victimized in these type of scams. And it can be devastating. It can really put people on a downward spiral. It causes anxiety and the self-doubt. And there are people who fall for these scams. They are truly our victims. Yeah. There are consequences to falling for one of these crimes.
Yeah, and we don't want victims. We don't want any of that, so we want to do our best to help out as many people as we can. And I think we did some of that today by getting some of this info out there. Share this information just like you're going to share that newsletter. Go sign up. Go get all the details, because today we made friends with Brian Watson, Community Outreach Specialist of R.O.S.E. Resources Outreach to Safeguard the Elderly, preventing the financial exploitation and defrauding of older adults through advocacy and education. Thanks for joining me today, Brian.
Thank you, Frank. It was fun.
This was Lifestyle Tucson. Bing, bong, bing. Time for a recap. What a great conversation I had with Brian there. And that statistic stuck with me for a while. To go from 300 million to 3.1 billion in scams is astronomical. Join them for that big golf tournament and look into getting a hole sponsored. What a good idea for local businesses. Sponsor hole. That sounds really fun. But really the biggest thing to do is volunteer. You can go get all that info over at roseadvocacy.org or email them at info@roseadvocacy.org. Give them a phone call at 602-445-ROSE. That's 602-445-7673. So I want to thank our new friends at R.O.S.E. for joining me today. You've been listening to Lifestyle Tucson. If you're a nonprofit that would like to be on the show, email lifestyletucson@gmail.com. For more information about this program or to listen to something you may have missed, go to the Sunday Mornings page on klpx.com, kfma.com, mixfm.com, or espntucson.com. You can also subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, and Audible, or wherever fine podcasts have trusted links. Follow on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, because I'm your BFF, your best Frank forever, Frank Powers. Toot toot Tucson. I love you the most.